Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to the 8 Eastern Standard Time DFS show, or as I like to call it, the best DFS show. My name's Rob, Sir Robert 6, Rad Rob Diamond on Twitter. Welcome. Rotopost.com. Come check us out. Today I'm here to talk about the Champions League Tuesday slate. Obviously there's a Wednesday slate too, but we will talk about that on Wednesday. But today for Tuesday, we're going to break this down. I think there's lots of really viable plays. I've got a few questions that people are looking for answers. So let's jump right into it. As always, I got the screen share on the go. So we'll jump that over. I want to show everyone my new screensaver. I'm pretty proud of that. I like that one apparently, kid. Noah Ritter. Anyone not a fan, then I'm not a fan either of you. So you got to get in the side of Noah, no question. So let's jump right into this now. So DraftKings, I went through the trouble of trying to figure out how I can best do this show without showing my lineups ahead of time. So what I did was I made a bunch of dummy lineups with a bunch of players that aren't playing. I did on FanDuel too. We'll jump over there. But yeah, in terms of the DraftKings slate, I think it's important to start here. Actually, you know what? First, we're going to start on the UEFA Champions League site. Let's check out the schedule here. I like this one better than the Google. So I'm assuming actually, excuse me, this is my time, not yours. So it's probably going to say 1500 for a lot of people at the 8 a.m. right now, Eastern Standard Time frame. But yeah, this is the slate for today. The two earlies are obviously Man City, Hoffenheim, and Juventus and Young Boys. I'm not playing the main slate today. Or excuse me, forget what I just said there. I'm not playing the early slate today. If I was, I think Man City's the obvious favorite here. Juventus just don't run up score lines, and I believe they're going to be without Ronaldo here. So yeah, yeah, I think Man City's the obvious favorite. You could probably take the Young Boys keeper as the value and try and spend up in Man City, and hopefully they even concede. But yeah, it's all about, it'll all end up being value if you're playing the early. I guess it would, if you're only playing the two games, that would be my strategy. If you're playing an all-day slate, I think this is a safe fade. The Juventus Young Boys game is probably a safe fade, unless you again really are dire need of taking a super value keeper, which again I assume the Young Boys keeper would be. I'm not playing the all days, I'm not playing the earlies, but that's what I do. I try and spend up a Man City beating Hoffenheim because Juventus just don't usually run up score lines. That's not their style. But yeah, let's jump into the main slate here today. We have Benfica traveling to Greece to take on AEK. We have Ajax making the quick trip from Amsterdam to Bayern to Munich. Shakhtar making a huge trip into France to play Lyon. Pleasant making the trip from Czech Republic over to Italy to play Roma. Real Madrid from Spain is making the very undesirable trip to Moscow. This is going to be the game we're going to focus on a lot today. You'll hear me talk about this and reference this game a lot. And Valencia are making the trip to Old Trafford to play Man United. There's a few things I want to talk about Man United, obviously. I think there's a lot of things in the news that need to be talked about just as much as who's playing in the game. But yeah, let's jump straight into the slate, actually, first on DraftKings. The way I want to do this today is very quickly run through the games, what I think is going to happen to the games, especially in relation to the slate. And then we're going to break down every single team because I think they're very, very important salaries we have to look at here today. So very quickly, Bayern should handle Ajax without too much issues. Ajax is a very good team, but they're slightly overpriced because they absolutely destroyed last slate. Every single one of them went off. So I'm not really against AEK. I'm really not interested in spending up that much for guys who really don't have that much of a floor against Bayern. Now, can they do things? Absolutely, but we'll talk about that. But in terms, this should be a 4-1, 4-0 scoreline for Bayern. yeah, we'll talk about that a little more as we get going here. Benfica traveled to Greece, like I said, to play the team from Athens, and yeah, this should be another a pretty decent 3-0. I don't think Benfica can get to 4 goals. I definitely think they can get to 3, but that's probably their ceiling. But I really don't see them conceding either. And what we'll notice on both sides is this is going to be one of the, in my opinion, one of the better keeper plays. But we'll get going here further here. Shakhtar and Lyon. I think this game's going to have tons and tons and tons of production. You cannot fade this game in terms of your exposure. I think it's for both cash and GPP. You're going to have to get a piece of this game. I'll talk about what I'm going to do also is tiers. I'm going to do a tiers breakdown for everyone. I think tiers are one of the lightest places, and we have to take a look at that too. Yeah, I'll talk about this in tiers. Real Madrid should pump CSKA. Probably again to the tune very similar to Bayern. The only difference is that Bayern's still going to be rolling with their full throttle team against Ajax. Bayern sat a lot of people, and so did Real Madrid on the weekend. But the only difference, well, actually, they both didn't win. Bayern lost 1-0 to Hertha. And yeah, we'll look at the players in a little bit here. But Real Madrid's sending a B squad in terms of their relative comparative skill. Sergio Ramos isn't going. Marcelo isn't going. Isco isn't going. Bale isn't going. So we're looking at potential 90-minute games from guys like Benzema at only 7,900 against a CSK team who are, I don't want to say guaranteed, that's pretty harsh and definitive, but CSK really should be conceding at least twice this game. So once we get deeper into that, we'll take a look. But Real Madrid are not sending a full team, and they should be super, super discounted across the board. This is the game if you're looking to really stack heavily on a team. I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty excited about this one. Roma had to play Real Madrid in their first game. Now, while that may not be overly relevant in terms of, yeah, the game was not close, the point here is that their salaries are priced like they just got beat really badly, and I guess by score, or they did technically get beat badly, but more importantly is that they just played a more dominant team, so their salaries are on the cheap, where they're playing a pleasant team at home that had a, I'll say again, a little bit of an illustrious first game. Kremric won't be doing this. They did against CSK. Kremric won't be getting 2 penalty shots or 2 goals against Roma in the same ease that he did in the first match day. So Roma's this team that is criminally underpriced across the board. Even Kolarov is a 7.2, 7.4 kind of player. Florenzi's looking at a potential clean sheet and still getting a 5 cross floor. Undertakes, yeah, we'll talk about this when we get to the game, but like, just look at these salaries. Like, they're not the elite salaries that you see in Bayern. This is potentially the only forward that has a hat-trick upside. Ajax aren't that bad. Lewandowski hasn't been playing that good. Dzeko always can play that good. And finally, we have Man United and Valencia, and this should be a low-scoring game. I'm not sure if there's going to be a clean sheet bonus, but by all definition, neither team is going to score 4 or 5 goals here, especially Man United. But actually, the first thing I want to look at before we get really into the main slate is the tiers. The reason I want to talk about the tiers first is I think this is for every sport that has tiers. NFL, soccer, hockey, NBA, MLB, especially MLB. If you play MLB, I know it's heading to the playoffs now and the season's basically over. Not playing tiers is one of the biggest leaks you can have to your bankroll. By all definition, pitchers are the most variable scores in the game. I can't tell you how many times I've had a complete banger of a card and my pitcher finishes -4. And it's incredibly easy to play tiers in any sport, especially MLB, But soccer is one of those things, especially I like hockey too. NFL is not so much because you have to stack with the quarterback. There's not that kind of necessitative stack here, especially for cash. You don't have to really think about that. So I'm going to do in a later best show here. I'll be doing tiers for NFL and hockey and things like that. Hockey starts tomorrow, so that will definitely be included. But I'm going to break down how to play soccer tiers. And this is a run over for a lot of different sports. Like I said, maybe you know some of these things, maybe you don't. But basically, yeah, every tier you have to pick one player. Again, I picked a dummy lineup of a full list of guys who aren't playing. So here's how you look at this. DraftKings doesn't just randomly put people in these tiers. Every tier has a cash play. Every tier has at least one cash play. So it's just your job to look at each tier and try and figure that out. Now, that runs true for every single sport. These players are just not randomly assigned. This is scripted in. If you're a fan of reverse engineering normal slates, normal classical style games, tiers is the easiest thing in the entire world. Basically, all you have to do here is figure out who the two players are in every tier that DraftKings put in here are the cash plays, and use them in comparison to the rest of these lists. Now, I'm going to break down each tier here and tell you which two players or three players or one player for sure that DraftKings has put in here as the cash play. Now, the important part, again, this overlays every single sport. What you do is you take this list that DraftKings has literally written up for you and handed you, and you go back to your classic and you just fill in your cash card with what DraftKings tells you. If you're new at all to the sport, that's how you play DFS. Basically, DraftKings is telling you who the players are going to be that can perform. And in all honesty, when you start building these lineups, I'm not going to lie to you right now. Basically, every single two guys I'm going to mention in each tier is in my cash card this slate. It's like I said, these guys are here for a reason. DraftKings is handing this to us on a silver platter. It's us to take this and use it. Now, NFL is way more complicated, and I'll talk about NFL once we do an episode on NFL. I don't play enough MLB to talk about, but I just know there's no pitchers, and I've had a lot more success at tiers than I have playing classical. And classic, excuse me. And NHL is identical to soccer. It's so easy. All you have to do is take these guys. And I know a lot of people are saying right now, you're probably sitting there listening to me saying, well, there's no salaries. Of course you can take them. No, I'm telling you, just put these guys into cards and you'll find that the deeper tiers you get, like in the tier 6, these guys are not that expensive at all on the classic game types. So whenever you go to put these guys in your cards, you're not spending the 10K that you'll find on Gareth Bale, who isn't even playing this week, or tomorrow whenever we talk about it. Obviously, the tiers haven't been released for tomorrow yet, but I can only assume Messi's going to be in tier 1 with whoever the other 10, Griezmann. Both of them are going to be in tier 1 because they're two cash plays, and you have to choose between the two of them. And that's basically what DraftKings does here. So let's break this down. Sorry for that drone on. If you already knew about tiers and everything, I apologize for all that, but I think that's incredibly important to learn in terms of how to play a new sport and get a better grasp of what's going on without giving up too much ground in terms of losing your bankroll, having losing weeks, bad runs. A lot of those poor variance moments will disappear when you just follow these steps. It's still not perfect, obviously, because life isn't perfect. And if what we knew was going to happen happened every week, we'd all be rich because we know stuff. So that just isn't the case. So let's break this down. Tier 1: Fecker, Isco, who isn't playing, Gareth Bale, who isn't playing, Lewandowski, and Rodriguez. Now, already we're being handed a huge platter here because Gareth Bale was supposed to be that cash play, and he isn't because he's not going to be playing today. Fecker is not a cash play. I repeat, he's not a cash play. He's Wilfred Zaha. He'll score goals 8 out of 10 games. He doesn't take corners. He doesn't take set pieces. He doesn't take a lot of crosses. What he does is he draws a lot of fouls, and he has a pretty decent floor. But what we have to remember, this is 18 points right here. So if we take away that 18 points, basically we're not really, we're left with enough, but it's not that impressive, especially when you compare it to the goal upside of Lewandowski, which still isn't a cash play, or the only obvious, very obvious cash play of not only this tier, but of the entire slate, James Rodriguez. So underpriced, midfield forward. We'll get to that whenever we get to Classical. But like I said, they lost to Hertha on the weekend, and I'll show someone else, which I'm a little less bullish on. I think they had almost 20 corners between the pair of them. I'll talk about the other in a second here, but James Rodriguez had a ton of crosses, ton of corners. He's the obvious player that you want from Bayern that has the floor. Everyone else has goal upside. Lewandowski is awesome for scoring a goal, but he's rarely going to take more than a few shots a game. Without that goal, he's finishing at 3 max. That's pointless. You can't really risk that. Even 14.5 is absolutely worthless when you consider his salary is what, 10 or 9, high 9s or whatever, and you can get J Rodriguez for almost J Rodriguez's floor is close to Lewandowski's ceiling. And if Rodriguez can hit a ceiling, he's just the obvious. He's the obvious play of this entire slate, if you ask me, Jay Rodriguez. But I'm just praying he starts and gets a full 90 minutes, as always with Champions League. I just think, yeah, this is pretty obvious right away. If you want to take Fecker, he's definitely the second, and I can accept that. I'm not going to be doing it because he doesn't have a floor. He has an incredible goal output. Where is it here? He scored what? Yeah, 3 goals and 2 assists and 5 starts. This is the first game on the weekend here that he didn't score in 4 straight games, all competitions. So like, I don't know. You can definitely get away with it. Shakhtar aren't that good, but he just doesn't have the floor that Jay has. So that's the definite two picks. And I would definitely go Fecker would be my first GPP pick, because I think a lot of people instantly glue themselves to Lewandowski and Bayern, assuming that Bayern are going to blow out Ajax. And they could. It's just this game has way more production. And this is how I know this, because as we go deeper into here, the second tier, we have Paul Pogba, Man United, Memphis Depay, also on Lyon. So we already have 2 Lyon guys. Robin on Bayern, Asensio on Real Madrid, who is playing and should get massive uptick in terms of minutes and usage because of all the injuries and lack of players going. Lukaku, so we got a couple of Man United players. Edin Dzeko, Mueller, Sandro Wagner, and Alexis Sanchez. So right away, there's a few names that should immediately jump out. I know a lot of people are going to look at Pogba. Now, the fact is, him and Reno don't get along. End of story. Like, I'm not talking about any frivolous rumor stuff, this. They just don't get along. He is a professional, but at the end of the day, it wears on you. And my understanding is he's never going to be the second captain again. Wait and see what happens. After the West Ham game, things just fell apart. So I think Man United's here for the taking. At the very most, Man United will struggle to find a result this game. And I'm just not interested, when you go through these lists here, on taking someone who doesn't take enough free kicks, doesn't take any corners or crossing free kicks, and he takes fouls like it's his job. Like, I know this is from Champions League. Literally, he's one of the league leaders in fouls this season in the English Premier League. So, like, that's just negative variance. You're just taking in a player you know is going to be negative 1.5 in Draft Kings due to fouls, no matter what. that's just his output, his floor of fouls. So yeah, there's no reason to take that negativity on, especially when right below him is the obvious cash play of this tier, Memphis Depay. He takes the corners for Lyon. This game should have insane production, goals on either side. He has been absolutely lights out this season for Lyon. He was absolutely lights out for the game against Man City. It may not show as deeply in his statistics as his teammate Fekir, but Depay is the very obvious floor play to me from this entire list. Now, there's other guys like Robin. Aaron Robin. You can definitely get away playing in cash. The reason for this is because he's probably the most selfish player in the entire. I would say in all of the big six leagues. He's pretty incredible, and sometimes what just happens, he tries to cut inside like he does literally every single time. The ball goes out for a corner, and he takes it. And he literally just picks it up and takes it to the corner, and he takes the corner. And sometimes this just happens 8 times a game, and he takes 8 corners, even though he's not the corner taker. Jay Rodriguez is one of them. So he still will get crosses. You know what he's going to do. You know he can still produce. I took him in cash last slate. He absolutely paid off. 9.3 was more than enough to carry me in cash. But yeah, I'm not sure about compared to Depay. I would rather take Jay Rodriguez for the floor because he could score. I think he's a great GPP and one of my favorite GPPs of this group. But in terms of comparison, I would rather take Depay in cash. Now, Asensio is someone in GPP you may just have to take in tiers, excuse me, because Real Madrid stack very easily. Every single slot has at least one Real Madrid player that's not only playing, but playing 90 minutes and playing in an incredible production role. There's not one in here, but I know Carabal's down there. So you may just have to play all the Real Madrid players because CSK isn't good enough. They just aren't. Even the trip to Moscow, I know it isn't easy, but Real Madrid should still outclass them for at least 2 goals. So now next would be Lukaku. Interesting in the sense that he's worth a goal. He's always worth a goal, but I'm just not entirely sure. Like I said, Manchester up for it, and he's not going to get more than 1 goal. And if he doesn't get a goal, you're absolutely toast. GPP, sure, but he in no way compares to Asensio, to Robin. We'll get to the rest here. He's more like, especially one's not succeeding without the other, and I don't even know if Sanchez is going to play. So it's kind of pointless to take one without being able to take the other. They're just as good fading, especially one without the 3. So yeah, easy fade for me in tiers. There's no real reason to take Man United. Now, Dzeko is probably the top GPP play from this tier. Again, one of the only forwards this entire slate that's looking at multiple goal upside. We don't have to worry about his salary, which is already ridiculously too cheap. So I have no problem with Dzeko and GPP. You can probably even get away with him in cash if you want to be really risky. Him and Robin carry the same amount of risk. I'd probably go with Robin again in cash just because he has more floor. But the goal upside here is absolutely undeniable. And if you are playing tiers and GPP and you don't have any Dzeko, you may as well just withdraw all your entries because, like I said, I really hope he plays. That would be embarrassing to see him not play, but I'd be incredibly surprised if he didn't. He's a world-class player, the Bosnian that I love. I'm a big fan. I always have been, even when he was on City. So, yeah, Ed Dzeko's a lock in GPPs this slate, and even borderline cash. Thomas Mueller, great guy, reaching senior citizen age and just isn't viable anymore. Not going to see the minutes. Even if he does come on the field, he's guaranteed. Same as Frank Ribery. They're coming off of 60 minutes. They're just too old. They're world-class, more experienced than anyone basically in the entire professional world right now. But, yeah, Thomas Mueller just not viable anymore, especially in this tier. And Sandro Wagner, same idea. He plays behind Lewandowski. So sure, Lewandowski doesn't end up starting and Sandro does, I suppose, if you want to be really fancy GPP. But like, people still aren't going to be owning Dzeko. All the homers out there, excuse my French, they will be jumping on Lukaku and Pogba for GPPs, thinking, oh, it's Man United, it should be Dzeko every single time. So there's no real reason to play Wagner, even if Lewandowski doesn't start. And Sanchez, same situation, probably won't even start. So there's not really much to think about there. So second tier, Depay is the obvious cash play, but you can get away with Robin, and you can definitely get away with Dzeko, one of the best forwards the entire slate. Tier 3, very interesting tier. This is where your insider knowledge and watching these videos should really pay off, because a lot of people will not know the cash structure for this tier. Now, there's 3 guys that really you can use for cash, maybe 4 if you want to be really risky. The first one's Ziyech on Ajax. Now, he's going up against Bayern, so you have to temper your expectations a little bit, but at the same time, I know, again, it wasn't exactly the most dangerous of opponents. I'm probably expecting just less than half that as his floor. You could probably get away with it in here. I think there's still better options. But if you're really looking to separate yourself and maybe a head-to-head, because I think a lot of people will obviously be taking, especially Bayern defenders, you may be able to break a clean sheet with Ziyech. He's more than capable. Very talented, has the floor, is just playing an elite opponent away from home. So there's not a lot to love, except that, he checks a lot of boxes. There isn't really much to talk about here. He hasn't been bad for Real Madrid, but the obvious thing is that he plays behind Benzema. Could he start over Benzema? Absolutely. Could it be considered a GPP then? Absolutely. I think he'd instantly jump to the top of the GPP table in this list here. But Rashford, again, same Man United story as the rest. Just no reason to. Could he? Yes, absolutely. If you were to ask me, hey, Rob, which Man United player would you take if you had to take one? It's easily Rashford. It's not even a comparison. I would take Rashford 10 out of 10 times if I was forced to take a Man United attacker. So that's that. But in terms of Man United, no. This is the first one we have to consider. Under has been taking some corners from Roma this season. Obviously not a lot, but enough that you have to consider him as a flyer for cash, especially against a team like Pleasant. He's almost guaranteed a floor of 5 crosses, probably pushing closer to 8 if I wanted to be a little bit more generous. Pleasant shouldn't have any response whatsoever to Roma's crossing, and it just so happens Roma is one of the top crossing teams probably in all of Europe. So yeah, I don't see why not to take someone who's going to cross the ball a lot against a team that's not going to stop the one of the big crossing teams in the world from crossing the ball. That's just a formula play, I guess you could play. But the real cash play this tier is definitely Pizzi. Now, the reason you really should like this guy is because his name is like pizza. But the other real reason you should like him is because, especially on the classic style, his salary is probably a little bit too low and his price off. They played Bayern last slate, and Bayern handled them, absolutely dominated them. So his minutes weren't great. Benfica's minutes aren't great, but they should absolutely pound AEK before he comes off the field. I'm not crazy about GPP because, again, I'm not sure about their minutes, but in terms of their floor and cash, I think there's a lot of excellent cash plays on Benfica because they should get enough done before coming off the field if they do come off the field. So I like Pizzi, but it's going to be really hard to deny Joshua Kimmich. He's been playing like garbage this season, if I'm being incredibly frank. But again, against their game last weekend to Hertha, he just went off and he took a ton of corners. So It's hard to say here. I think you could probably get away with taking them both. See, that's the thing, especially for cash. If you take Jay Rodriguez and Kimmich, you're basically taking every set piece opportunity for Byron. And who are we kidding? Like I said, Ajax isn't that bad, but they're not that good either. So I think that's a really solid play for cash because there isn't really a lot of real cash options outside of Pizzi and Kimmich. Like they're the actual like definitive cash plays of this tier. They're the set pieces guys, and they're going to get a bunch of crosses. No one else here takes set pieces other than Ziyech. But again, you're going up against an elite opponent, so when salary is not considered, there's no real reason to consider him as a value play because there's no value there. You can separate yourself with ownership or something like that, but yeah, Pizzi and Kimmich because, again, Benzema is great and all. He probably has really high goal upside against CSKA, except Benzema hasn't scored in 4 straight games, except Real Madrid haven't scored in 3 straight games, except Real Madrid haven't won in 3 straight games. I think there's a lot to consider with this Real Madrid, but they're so valued across the board, discounted, excuse me, that I'm not going to really look for Benzema here. There's no value in his salary in Classic, and there's no upside in cash. Now, in GPP, I can definitely get behind it. 100% I can get behind Benzema. He's probably still going to draw a lot of ownership. That's why I wouldn't mind Rashford maybe or under. Definitely more on the under train, but the goal upside's there. Traore is someone we have to consider. Now, what I'm really excited about Troy is, first of all, he has been lights out in the domestic French league this season. He's been absolutely incredible. Secondly, he scored -2, a full -2 points last slate. So literally anyone who sees him starting is instantly going to just pass him over, especially when Fekir and Memphis are right there on the same team. So I really like Troy a lot. I doubt he's going to start, but if he does, this is probably my GPP of this tier, and he could very easily become one of my favorite GPP players of the entire slate. I'm not bullish on him. I think cash, no way. It's not on. Just take Kimmich or Pizzi and walk away with your points. Under if you have to, and Ziyech if you really have to. But in terms of GPP, yes, I'm big on that. Huge in Traore. Lucas Vazquez is another guy we're going to have to consider because of the Real Madrid injuries and the fact that him, Asensio, and Isco were the 3 wingers, and Bale, excuse me, the 4 wingers, and 2 of those 4 aren't playing. So we can almost guarantee Vazquez and Asensio are going to get 90-minute games here. So against a team like CSKA, again, you can really get away with stacking some Real Madrid because, yeah, there's without Bale especially, it's going to open up a lot of value plays. But yeah, that's my tier 3. Again, you can. I'm not as bullish in Kimmich and Classic. But Pizzi I'm pretty high on, and his salary is really low too compared to what it should be against a team like AEK. So yeah, that's my tier 3 breakdown. Tier 4, we know Marcel's not going. Martial, Tony Cruz, Kolarov, Salvio, Frank Ribery, El Shaarawy, Gnarby, and Justin Kluivert, and we know Pastore is going to be out too. So here's the issue with this tier. This tier's kind of got me a little bit bummed out because it's got the 2 best cash plays of the entire slate, Tony Cruz and Kolarov, in the same tier. So you're going to have to choose between these 2, which is an absolute disaster. And honestly, it's literally like I'm begging Tony Cruz doesn't start this game. I'm begging the soccer gods not to have Tony Cruz play. That way we can just go Kolarov, because outside of that, you're going to have to make 2 tier cash cards. It's the only way you're going to get around this, and you can't miss out on either of these players. That's how viable making the 2 different cards with these 2 just in each other. They're probably both going to get 20 fantasy points this week, or today, excuse me, this slate. That's a little bit ceiling pushing it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's their floor. That's definitely a ceiling, but it's 100% viable against the likes of CSKA and Pleasant. Now, if I had to choose, it's probably going to be Kolarov at home because he also has the clean sheet upside. I think that makes a lot more sense. But Tony Cruz, same idea. In your classic cash cards, you need these two. You need these two players if you're going to win any money today. Knock on wood, none of the stupid injuries or cards or something weird happens. The floor on these two is unquestionably the highest in the entire slate, bar none, unquestionable. And neither of them are over 7K. I'm pretty sure Tony Cruz is under 7K. So we'll check that very shortly. But yeah, that's where you go here. It's too bad, again, because Salvio is another cash option. Again, Benfica are really weird with their minutes and their corners. So Salvio is someone who has taken some corners, but he just doesn't hold water compared to those two. Now, if you're talking GPP, absolutely. Against a team like AEK, absolutely, 100%. He's probably one of my favorite of this entire I would probably take one of these two in GPP too, just because they're not going to ruin you whatsoever, and they can still literally break a slate, especially Kolarov in this matchup. But I think Salvio is a really excellent pivot for GPP, and then Frank Ribery's coming off the field. Martial is the same deal as every other Man United player. He's not playing. Ribery's not playing a full game. He's too old. Doesn't matter what happens. It's just not on. El Shaarawy probably won't start. If he does, he's probably not playing a full game. He's interesting enough, but I would much rather go with Benfica rather than another Roma opportunity that's definitely coming off the field. I'd rather take a Roma 90-minute player that has the same upside and twice the floor. No, all due respect, same idea. Bayern's good, but just no minutes. Probably not starting. Kluivert's a good player. Obviously, his father was a former superstar, but that just literally nails this tier down. It's so obviously these two as the cash plays that you're going to have to make two cards just to get bang bang back forth because they both have the option to finish 20. So yeah. Cruz and Kolarov in either format, and Salvio and GPP. That's tier 4 for you. Tier 5. Now, very interesting again. Tiesa and Marlos are both see Shakhtar. Okay, this is what Shakhtar does. I actually really like Shakhtar. I'm a big supporter. They defend like crazy. Tiesa plays out on the left, Marlos plays on the right. Basically, what happens is they do counterattacks to the left through Tiesa, and they just basically crank the ball up the field to him and let him dribble at people and draw a foul. I guarantee he has at least 5 fouls drawn last game. 4. I was close. So that's literally what they do over and over and over and over. Is just run up through him and let him dribble at people and draw fouls. Marlos, on the other hand, has a little bit more of the crossing upside that he obviously didn't show. But it's tough. Again, going into Turkey wasn't the best way to showcase his goods. But he still did get an assist because, again, those are the two vocal points for Shakhtar. And going back to what I was talking about originally, so we have both teams on here, and not only both teams, but the heavy hitters of both teams are available on here to be picked. So I think if we're taking anything from tiers and what DraftKings is telling us is that there's viable options on both sides of this game. Don't expect a clean sheet bonus. There should be goals on both sides. That's just what we can take away from this. Have I necessarily correlated that by looking at the odds of the game or something like that? No, not at all. It's just what DraftKings is telling us. I like David Alba except for the fact he's not taking corners or enough crosses. And yeah, that cross last game was great, but 8.8 was good enough in cash. That's not going to win you anything in GPP when he costs more than 5.5K. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but again, we'll see it, and I know it's more than that. Dusan Tadic, he can be played in cash, but it's the same idea as Tay. So you're kind of chasing this narrative. Well, like this has to happen repeatedly, and what that has to happen is that Bayern just falter to prevent Dusan Tadic from whipping balls in. That's basically your only hope here, because there's still other guys here who have actual value and cash scripts. Is Tadic a cash option? Yes, absolutely. Don't let this go to your head. Again, they're playing AEK. The difference is he's playing 90 minutes. That's a big deal. So I don't know. I'm not as crazy about it. He is still Dusan Tadic and will do what he does. But yeah, I think there's other plays, in particular the next two, Servi and Mantolos. Servi is, again, on Benfica, one of the few guys you're going to get that's probably going to play 90 minutes, and he takes corners. So I have no issues rocking Servi as your cash play for Tier 5. He's probably one of my favorites. But again, there's only two, maybe three or four. The second is definitely Mantolos for Athens. This is against a team like Ajax where they got dominated. And make absolutely no mistake, Benfica is not as good as Ajax. So what should happen here is that we can expect a very similar output of crossing this game. And I have absolutely no issues, again, with this in cash. It's going to be extremely low owned. Nobody should know about it unless someone has actually put a fair amount of research into AEK to see who takes their set pieces and things like that. And Mantolos is their corner taker. So in fact, he has almost supreme set piece exposure. So Mantolos is definitely my pick from Tier 5 for cash. Servi is very close behind. Severick has interest to me with Benfica. They do have other really talented forwards that could come on the field, but I think my big issue with him is that he has literally no ceiling, and this isn't something that's just new. I think I'm positive he's Austrian. He's on the Austrian or Swiss, excuse me. Yeah, he's in the World Cup this summer. He wasn't scoring then. He isn't scoring now. So yeah, GPP, the only script you're going for is you're hoping Benfica blow out AEK for 5, and nobody else in this tier does anything at all. And with guys like Alba, Chiesa, and Merlos, and probably the highest scoring combined game total of the entire slate, even Ferreira can play, and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes in for Seferovic, because he's just a better attacking option. Seferovic's very defensive, so it's just not on. He's not going to I think a lot of people are going to go this because they see the 90-minute forward against AEK, and they don't realize that he's a Tosin on Everton reborn. He's just not a DFS player. Alcantara probably won't play either. Who knows with Real Madrid? We're going to have to wait and see. I don't believe Vince's, Junior is going to be playing. Ferreira could find the field. I doubt it again, but it could happen, and Lingard won't be playing. So again, people probably won't know that Mantolos and Servi are the cash plays here, and they'll roll with David Alba, who, fact checked, last week would have finished with 2 points, 2.8, 2.6 without his assist. So that's something to consider here. Bayern just aren't crossing on the same magnitude that they have in past years. They're not the insta-clicks that they once were. I would rather go on the other side of the field to either Tadic even before Alba. But yeah, Mantolos is my pick. Low owned and very viable. Tier 6. Break this down really quickly because it's a big tier. Cornet, GPP only, doesn't have a floor, scored a couple goals or a goal last slate that was big, and that inflated his score. He still would have finished with, 2 point whatever without scoring a goal. So not in cash. GPP if you're stacking Lyon or, again, maybe just game stacking in general. You can get away with putting him in there, but I'm not interested in either format. I think Carvalho makes an excellent cash option. He's going to be playing 90 minutes. Excellent chance for the clean sheet against CSK, who don't score a lot. Modric, conversely, I think is more of a GPP option. This is where it's like if Cruz doesn't play, Modric is the lock of the slate, especially in classic game styles. But on here, he's even super viable because this tier isn't really cash heavy; it's very GPP heavy. So, yeah, Luka Modric is something I'm very much considering if Cruz doesn't start. But Carvalho is probably my cash pick from this entire tier. Luke Shaw is interesting in the sense that he has an incredible floor. Man United could get a clean sheet at home. It's going to be a low-scoring game. He does cross the ball enough, but he's kind of assist reliant, especially when trying to compare with the floor of these two. So I'm not as crazy about him as I am with Carvalho, but definitely get away with it. I wouldn't say no to Shaw and cash. Same idea with Florenzi, though. More of a GPP. Roma you can stack fairly nicely across the board here. So I have no problem with Florenzi and GPP. Cash is acceptable, but like the very minimum of options here. I would go Shaw even, knowing that there's probably no clean sheet for him because there's probably a clean sheet here, but that's just something you chase in GPP, not cash. Mata, no thank you. I'd rather go Shaw, just a better floor, better upside, and probably won't play 90 minutes even if he does start. And Schick, I'm just not interested in comparison to his minutes and other Roma options that are in here. I'd rather take Florenzi, even Pellegrini, who same issue again, minutes. It's just there's no real point in taking risks on these guys who haven't even played yet. Won't be playing. Wouldn't surprise me if, excuse me, Dembele finally gets some time here. For anyone who doesn't know, Moussa Dembele he's a future star. Get used to seeing his name now. He'll be on Chelsea or City here in a few years. He was most recently with Celtic. I wonder if he's still with Celtic. Anyways, it's irrelevant. He may be on loan. That's the Celtic jersey right there. But yeah, interesting. Same idea. Jonas is the captain of Benfica. Last year he had like exclusive set pieces, free kicks and penalty shots. So like if he starts, yes, I would even consider him. No, I wouldn't consider him in cash. Carvalho and Modric both have way better opportunities than him. But GPP, absolutely. Like I said, team captain, just hasn't played Champions League yet this season. So yeah, that's the tiers breakdown. As you can see, pretty straightforward. We'll go here to classical in a second, and I'll show you how easy it is to build these guys in here too. So yeah, either Cruz or Kolarov here. And then either Carvalho or Modric, especially if or Shaw, excuse me, especially if Cruz doesn't start, then you have to put Modric in there, and then you can easily just put Kolarov. So that should be a good idea for your cash. I already gave you, in tune with that too, a better idea how to build the GPPs. Basically, a really good way to build the GPPs and tiers is just run through and just look at what teams are in each tier and how much exposure you can get to each team. Real Madrid, someone, like I said, you can stack basically in every single tier, and there's going to be someone viable. Obviously, there's not here because Gareth Bale isn't playing, but he was supposed to be. But like Asensio, Vasquez, Cruz, you know what I mean? Again, I don't think Junior's going to be playing. There's no other ones in here, but still, that's a really good core for a GPP right there. Yeah, I don't know what more to say about that with tiers. I'm super bullish on tiers. If I were you, I would get as much exposure, maybe even more exposure in tiers than I would in normal classical play, just because it's way less bad luck. Let's put it that way. Now let's quickly break into the classic here. Let's go team by team. Doesn't matter. Bayern are still going to score 4. Tagliafico is interesting in a sense. Don't get this again to your head. They played a garbage competition, and he had a goal at the first of the game, at the very end of the game, and still took a yellow card and still finished with 30. If he's only getting 2 crosses against AEK, I'm just not interested. Sorry. I know he is a player in Ajax, but it's just not something I'm looking at. And this, like, all these floors in Ajax, right, and ceilings are going to be completely shot because of who they're playing. Now, there is one player in Ajax here. A question I got asked by a few different people is, who are good value plays this slate? It doesn't look like there's very many value plays. Number one, there's only 2. The first one on my list is on Ajax, and it's Shone. I'm not sure if I'm saying the name right. I don't know. He takes their corners, and he only costs 3.7K. Bayern are a good team. There's no denying that. But if you're debating between, am I going to play Tadic or Ziyech at 7K or 6K, or am I going to play Shone at 3.7K? It's a completely different discussion. You can risk things at 3.7K. He gets 6, you're flying. You're absolutely fine, because the rest of your card is going to be completely caked. So I have him in cash. I'm probably sticking with him in cash unless something happens, like he doesn't start. But Shone is an absolute cash lock, in my opinion, at 3.7K. Even going up against a team like Bayern, you don't need very much. Salary's too cheap, plain and simple. Again, Huntelaar is a legit world-class forward. You may not be familiar with Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, but he is actually like a sought-after player, very popular. He's kind of fallen off the radar in the past few years, but back in the day, he was the man. He was legit. I want to say he did. Yeah, exactly. That's why I knew he was such a big deal. He played for Real Madrid back in the day. He's a legit player. It's just the problem is going up against Bayern, not a cash script, and 5K is still a little bit too expensive compared to some other options. Casper Dolberg is going to be a future world star. Not yet, though. There just isn't a lot to like here. Even David Neres played almost a full game, got an assist, and would have finished with 1.5 without the assist. So, there's just not a lot there to go for. But Bayern, on the other hand, like I talked about, Jay Rodriguez should be absolutely your cash play as a forward too, because that allows you to also pick up Shone. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm looking at the forwards there. There we are. So, yeah. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Again, 3.7K, 8.7K for James Rodriguez is just ridiculous. I know what happened was obviously they had guys like Gareth Bale priced very highly, and he's not playing now. So that opens up this massive script gap for us to take advantage. And either format, 8.7K all day. Take that 1K discount off a guy who's going to score maybe 4 points more than whatever his goal is worth, tops. I don't mind Robin for cash also. I think you can get a big discount there, but you can't take both Robin and Jay Rodriguez. So it'll absolutely have to be one or the other. I prefer Jay, but Robin's also an opportunity there. And again, looking through this, there's no midfielders you want to take a look at. Mueller's coming off the field. We talked about Robin a little bit. Even then, you want to play him as a forward. No, coming off the field, probably not playing. Defensive midfielder that scored a lucky goal last slate would have finished with 2 points, whatever, without his goal. And Javi Martinez has taken some stuff in the past, but no, I'm just not interested. 88 minutes is pretty good, though, but no there. This is, again, I wouldn't hate you for it. It isn't the defender I'm going with. I'm all over Kolarov, and you can't really take Kimmich and Kolarov together. You can, but you're absolutely gutting yourself for a forward or Cruz, one or the other. You can't take another forward, Cruz, and then Kimmich, and then Kolarov. It's just too much salary. So I'm probably gutting the Kimmich just because he hasn't been good enough this season up until last game where his output was crazy. But I'm not taking that to heart. And David Alba, again, it's just that's not enough for 6.2K. Save the $500 somewhere and get Kolarov. Hummels is always a goal threat. I don't mind him for GPP because he's still not going to ruin you at 6 from 4.2K. Is a little expensive now, but I like their clean sheet opportunity. So yeah, again, Boateng's he's not a goal upside like Hummels is at all. But yeah, when there's a clean sheet around, you always have to sniff. You know what I mean? And Neuer, world-class keeper, one of the best in the world. It's just I'm not paying 6K for someone who could concede because Bayern just haven't been that great at the back. And even they were super, super lucky not to concede against Benfica. Really lucky. Really, 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 really lucky. So I'm just not looking to tempt fate again. Ajax are probably going to score, probably off a Ziyech cross, but I would rather chase that floor with Shone. So that's my Ajax Bayern breakdown. I hope that helped. But yeah, that's really the two players I'd focus on for mainly cash. Rodriguez, either format. Benfica and AEK. Now, this is another game that deserves some consideration. Probably the keeper you're going to want to go with this slate. I know he's away from home, but AEK just – I never like picking on Greece at home. This is true. But, yeah, I'm pretty sure 5.1K is a little bit too cheap for a team that probably won't score this entire Champions League. I've seen crazier APOEL last season against Spurs, scored and broke the biggest clean sheet expectation ever. So it could happen, but I really like Benfica here, and I really like Vlachodimos. Cool guy. I like that. Now, in terms of defenders, Grimaldo is someone that you're going to have to consider from the salary. Corners, I know he didn't get a lot, especially a lot of that had to do with the fact they're playing Bayern, but he's still going to cross the ball a ton. On Draft Kings, Grimaldo is probably someone that you can even stack like this in cash, and you're looking at a pretty solid floor. I expect a much better outing than see. That's why I like Benfica a lot. Their salaries are really low from getting throttled, and they're not that bad of a team, especially against AEK. So yeah, Grimaldo is someone you're going to have to consider either format, and equally can be said about Pizzi. Like I said, 7.1K is a little bit expensive, more expensive than I thought he was. I thought he was closer to Cruz and such. But 7.1K, probably going to have to consider it. The vocal point's going to take a lot of the set pieces. And again, or you can go on the other side here, Mantalos. Now you see 6.4K. Now you understand why I was so bullish about him in tiers. This is way too expensive for someone who probably won't get a goal in the game. Benfica aren't that good, obviously, and they are at home. But I would expect a little bit. It's hard to say. That's really hard to say. 6.4 just is too high for me. That's probably an indication you should be taking him, in all honesty. But yeah, it's a little bit too high for me. And you can also consider guys like Salvio. Again, 6.7K is a little bit high, but Servi is really what I like at 6.4K. If I was to pick anyone from that, definitely Servi. That's a really cheap salary for someone who splits some corner duties. And again, you saw Servi and Mantalos, I believe it was, in the tiers. So exact same idea here. Same salary. There's a reason they're lined up against each other. I'd probably prefer Servi in classic mode just because I like Benfica more, and I'd probably be on more Benfica because Grimaldo isn't in tiers, but his salary is just so obscenely cheap here that he's one of the better defensive players in the entire slate. So for that reason, I would prefer going with more Benfica than coming back with there's no real comeback here. You know, you're ruining a clean sheet if he gets a goal. So yeah, Pizzi's where you want to go. But yeah, there's some really good defensive options. There's not really much more to talk about in here. That I think he must have got. How do you do that? Just a clean game, I guess. 7's pretty interesting. Not gonna lie. That's a pretty high score. But yeah, jump into the forwards again. We talked about a lot of this in the tiers, but yeah, there isn't really too much more to discuss. I really don't like any of the forwards here. It's tough because I'm sure someone's going to score, but at the same time, Seferovic is just not an attacking player, and the rest of the minutes are really unreliable. So I think I'd rather just stick with this if I'm going with Benfica. I think that's a really solid floor play for either format, and with the clean sheet opportunity, there's a ceiling there to be had too. So that's my Benfica AEK breakdown. Shakhtar, Olympiacos, Lyon. Yeah, I think Memphis again, probably the player with Jay Rodriguez you want to play up front. Two guys that are just too cheap. If players this slate like Bale were going to be playing at 10.5, all these guys would see a boost. These four right here would see a boost of probably 500, if not a full K salary. So I think it makes a huge difference without Bale. It's hard to say what format. I'm going to say Fecker in GPP, Depay in Memphis, Depay in cash. But it's almost a borderline lock for me. In all honesty, this game should produce pretty heavily. And then you see Traore again. You see why I like him so much on tiers. And here it's a little bit expensive, obviously, but no one's paying 7.3K for a guy that was -2. And especially, like I said, if people aren't aware, they're not going to touch that. And that leaves a massive ownership gap. Yeah, not a lot of defensive options in terms of Lyon hurting. And I'm not really digging Lopez, the kind of clean sheet opportunity compared to Benfica's clean sheet opportunity. I think they're priced down because they're away, and Lyon is priced up a little bit because they're at home. I think Shakhtar is worth a goal. Speaking of which, Paitov's decent enough goalie. Lyon is just too good. I'm definitely considering Ismaili, though, in cash to slate. Now, I know another place where you're probably going to have to go if you're really looking to get super heavy is absolutely Rakitic. Rakitic. Oh, man, Canada's hard. Being from Canada is tough living. So the reason for this is obviously the 3.1K. He takes some set pieces and some corners. I definitely prefer Ismaili. It seems like Ismaili's lost his corner duty. And I don't think there's a clean sheet to be had here, so I'm really not interested in chasing a ceiling. That's not going to happen. I'd rather just take 6 crosses for someone who's at 3.1K. Lyon's good, but they're not that good. So yeah, I have absolutely no problem with him in cash. It's a borderline lock for me again. But yeah, it's like we talked about earlier. How do you want to approach the Marlosa Tiazon situation? Tiazon's probably a little bit too cheap and classic given his foul drawing upside, but I'm just not interested in chasing that in either format. Same with Marlowe, so I'm just not interested in chasing, and that's what you're doing, especially in cash. You can get away with it in GPP, but there's just no option there in cash. And same situation. Like you can get away with it because that's probably going to be closer to 7 this game, but Shakhtar is going to sit back and let him dribble at them and probably take some fouls. He'll probably have 4 fouls by half. Whether or not he can keep that up or not, something to consider. But yeah, that's another reason why I'm really not interested in whoever they roll out wingback as a potential discount. It's just a foul upside that I'm not willing to take on. And the Real Madrid situation that we talked about, the keeper is probably going to be Navas, irrelevant anyways. Which one it is, excuse me. The salary isn't the most expensive, but Real Madrid away in Russia, that's a lot to consider. Carvalho is going to get a bunch of crosses. Ramos isn't playing, so Nacho again is even going to be a super discount. I'm not interested because he's played tons. He doesn't really have the upside, and Odriozola is a young kid. I doubt he will get the start, but it could happen. A little bit too expensive for me. Where I'll be looking if I'm going anywhere from this game is definitely going to be Varane. Probably for GPP chasing the center back goal or just him to finish close to 6. 3.7 is too cheap for a player of Varane's skill set. Way too cheap. So you may have to consider him for some GPPs when you're chasing the center back goal. Bale's not playing. Isco's not playing, which means Asensio and Vasquez are probably going to get 90 minutes in each wing. They don't take free kicks or set pieces, so the Vasquez has a little bit, but I don't expect either of them to. It's all going to be Toni Kroos, 6.6K. Get him in either format. Literally the best player of the slate from the salary. Way too cheap. I don't mind Modric either, 5.6K. I prefer him in GPP because I know Kroos is going to get those set pieces in the floor. Modric just could do stuff, and that's not something to chase in cash. So, yeah, I'm all about Toni Kroos, cash, GPP, whatever. Lock of the slate, one of the best players with Jay Rodriguez and Kolarov. So, yeah, that's really my take for those. I don't have much to say in Benzema. Hasn't scored in 4 straight games, all competitions. Not interested in taking on the potential minutes. He isn't an electric player. He's talented enough, obviously, to play in Real Madrid, but he just isn't an electric player. For example, Fekir is an electric player. Robin is an electric player. Traore is one of the most electric players in the entire slate. So yeah, it's just not on for me. Benzema's not a play for me this slate from even that discount. I'm hoping it draws more ownership than it deserves. I'd rather just go down to Vasquez. 7.3K. Yeah, sounds good in GPP, especially the stack here. Real Madrid are so stackable, and CSK is so scoreable, is a word I guess I'll use here. Akinfeev is a good guy, 41 or something like that. Like really old. He's not that old, but he's old. He's just not a clean sheet keeper. He's going to let in goals all the time. He literally has like a historic record of the most consecutive Champions League goals of conceding. Like he's going to let in goals. Real Madrid are going to score. There's no reason not to take someone like Lucas Vasquez at a discount when they're looking at this kind of upside. So yeah, Vlasic is slightly inflated in terms of score because he ended up on all the free kicks last game because Brozovic didn't play. So, which is interesting. If he does end up playing, Bistrovic, 3.1K, he does take their corners. Whether he plays or not, it's another question altogether. But yeah, Vlasic ended up in all the corners. I think he even took the penalty shot. So that's why he was so inflated. I don't expect that same kind of scoreline against Real Madrid. So no, thank you. But fair enough. Dzagev watched the World Cup. He was the star in the World Cup. He was a star for them last week. He had an incredible game. It may not have shown up as brilliantly in terms of production-wise, but yeah, he was excellent. There just isn't too much to look at here. Like, not the worst option in the world, obviously, but CSK just are going up against Real Madrid. Not that exciting. They're a fairly boring team as is. Mario Fernandez plays. They do play with 2 defenders as wingers. So Fernandez and Nabakin both play as wingers. The only issue is that you wouldn't know it. They really don't cross the ball, and that's the thing with CSK. They're a decent enough team, but they don't cross the ball. We'll talk about more of that in FanDuel, which has different score sets. So they are a little bit different over there. But here, there's just no. It's like taking a PPR player in a non-PPR league. It just doesn't make sense. They're not going to cross the ball. So no reason really to take them. Chavlov has one of the highest condensed scoring rates of the entire slate, maybe entire Champions League. Like he scores all of CSK's goals. So again, you're getting, if anything happens, Chavlov's going to be involved. It's just math. yeah, like I don't know. 16 isn't the greatest score, but it's still 4 times value. Yeah, it's tough, right? It's tough. I'm not interested, but it's there. It's absolutely there because Real Madrid have been shaky this season. As I mentioned a few times already, they've been rotten as of late, and I can't imagine a trip to Moscow with a discounted team is necessarily going to just like open the floodgates. I'm hoping it will. The discounts definitely make it possible that it will. I'm going to chase it, but in cash, Tony Cruz, lock of the slate. Don't even think about it. Just click and walk away. And if he doesn't start, even better. Even better. So yeah, it's all about the Cruz and the Modric. Cash for Cruz, Modric GPP. Moving on next to Roma and Pleasant. There's really not too much to talk about in Pleasant. The players that play in important positions don't play 90 minutes. You see, obviously, they did here. But yeah, domestically, they generally come off. That surprised me a little bit last slate, but no, against Roma, just no. It's just not on. They did this against CSKA. If you're only scoring 4.5 against CSKA, you're just not going to be viable against Roma. So I'm sure Limberski, who came to bite me last week, could do it once more with another assist. But even then, 1.5 without the assist, you're up the creek without a paddle. That's not what they say, but you know what they say. So yeah, immediately let's just move on to Roma. Probably my favorite keeper play of the slate, safest win, safest clean sheet. Doesn't really need saves because he's not 6K, and he happens to have like the defender of the slate, easily Kolarov. Either format doesn't matter. I'm taking him 9 out of 10 times over Kimmich. Not even considering it. Kimmich has been garbage this season. Kolarov has been nothing short of flames. So I have no problem with Kolarov. He scored last game. Let's go, Kolarov. Let's take it home this slate. So yeah, 6.7K is actually really manageable when you get into some of these values that I've been talking about. But yeah, Kolarov. Olsen, another really great keeper defensive stack for either format, especially cash because Kolarov's the GOAT. But yeah, again, if you want to GPP, a little bit expensive, but it will be super low owned because generally speaking, people are going to be chasing multiple Bayern players or multiple Olympique Lyon players or Real Madrid players, and they won't be able to afford this kind of defensive stack. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting place to turn this slate. It's pretty safe, and literally Roma are going to play the entire game in Pleasant's half, just crossing the ball. So yeah, all about it. Talked to it under already. You can see 7.6 is a little bit expensive, but really it isn't the worst. There isn't really anything else in there to look at because yeah, this is the guy, the slate that you're going to want to take in basically every single GPP at Dzeko. Like I said, used to play in Man City, won the league with Man City, him and Aguero up front with Balotelli back in the day. He's a Bosnian Herzegovinian international, 6'4", huge guy. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I have a soft spot for basically anyone from the Balkans. Generally speaking, they're the most genuine and legitimate people I've come across, especially in Canada. So I will be biased and have recency bias with Ed Dzeko, excuse me, every single time. But there's absolutely no denying this guy is a beast. 6'4", going against a Pleasant team that has no business. They're not going to be able to stop him. Literally, the only thing that's going to prevent Dzeko from having a good game is him just not playing very well. If he just exists for 90 minutes against Pleasant and Kolarov and I want to say, excuse me, Florenzi combining for 12 crosses, you got to believe one of those 12 is going to end up on Dzeko's head. So I have no problem with that. A lot of people are going to be scared away from the score last night. It was Real Madrid, and he was going up against a very, very angry Ramos and Varane. So, yeah, I think that's probably the forward play of the slate for GPP. For the cash, I still prefer getting the midfield forwards into the forwards. But for GPP and Dzeko, lock it in 9 out of 10 times. And the only reason you don't take it that one time is just to be safe and play by DFS law. If there was no laws to be afraid of here, like Murphy's Law and such, I would play 10 out of 10. But yeah, that's my Roma take. Best team of the slate, probably. And finally, we have Valencia and Man United. Yeah, so basically what happened last week, Man United were playing Derby in the midweek tie. Pogba, Shaw, a bunch of other guys, excuse me, I believe Lingard, the three of them were in the stands, and Paul Pogba took a video of the three of them watching the game. Now, if anyone didn't hear what happened, Man United got knocked out of the cup by Derby in penalty shots. So basically what happened was, in the video, Pogba's, looking somber, and he shows Lingard looking super somber, and then they show Luke Shaw, and Luke Shaw is laughing and waving and laughing. And Pogba literally says, why are you laughing? Why are you smiling? And Shaw's like, ha ha ha, whatever. Pogba posted this on his social media accounts immediately following the game, and Mourinho saw it. So Mourinho immediately assumed that this video was taking post penalty shootout loss, and that they were joking around and having fun at the expense of players. So Pogba showed up to training, and Mourinho absolutely skinned him, completely. And I'm talking already, we know the relationship's fractured. So basically what happened was they had to call the main press guy over and ask the press guy, when was the video actually taken and when was the video actually posted. This guy had to break through for Mourinho exactly. This is when it was. This is what it was. This is what it was. Long story short, now that I've told the entire story, Mourinho was in the wrong. Pogba took that just in the opening minutes of the game and posted it after the game was done. The reason for this is because apparently Old Trafford, being the old stadium that it is, has no cell phone service whatsoever. It's apparently this is so I've been hearing and reading, no cell phone service. It's garbage. So Pogba couldn't post the video during the game. It had to be put up after the game. Again, long story short, Mourinho has absolutely lost the plot. He's completely lost control of this team. If they do not fire him, they are seriously have a serious issue with relegation. This team is not responding to him. His mentality does not fit Man United whatsoever. I know a lot of pundits and people will say the reason he's not succeeding is because Man United have never been afraid to lose a game trying to win. They never have. That is the Man United mantra. That is their history. They will always, always try to win a game. And Mourinho, his number one fear in life is losing. And he will be doing everything within his possible power, even if it means not trying to win, as long as he doesn't lose. And that goes against everything Man United stand for, and something that they've always stood for. And that's why this clash is happening. And that's why he's completely lost the plot. And that's why everyone's questioning his tactics, is because they go completely against everything Man United have ever stood for. And when you try and build a club philosophy that completely contrasts the history, it's never going to work out. And that's why Mourinho is going to get fired. He's too emotionally involved now, that he's too much pride and ego that he's trying to respond and defend with. And the further and further he continues to fail, which have absolutely not, he's an incredible coach. He's awesome. The issue is that he's going to keep failing. His ego is going to get worse and worse. And this show is going to get worse and worse until they literally stop it. That's literally the only end scenario, end game here. There's no, oh, look at the tide has turned. It's just not on. It's not going to happen. So that's my rant on Man United. I'm sorry for drawing that out so long. I think it's really important. The most important thing to take from this is that they're absolutely up for the taking right now against Valencia. 100%, especially in the sense that they're safe fades. They're not going to score more than 2 goals. It's just not what they do. I can bring up Man United, literally the Young Boys game, as I talked about in the video before that game. All Man United do is score 2 goals. If they're scoring more than 2 goals, it's because they got at least 1 penalty shot. It's the only way they score more than 2 goals. And that's how they beat Young Boys, was because Pogba had the 2 penalty shots, and they end up scoring more than 2 goals. It just doesn't happen otherwise. So we can safely fade Man United's ceilings. Lukaku's not going to score more than 1 goal. Dzeko probably is. Rashford, maybe Rashford. Maybe. I could see Fred starting and people being like, oh, 4,600 Fred, what a discount. And yeah, he may get an assist. He's also not going to play a full game, and he's also not going to fully utilize his ceiling, which from 4.6K, unfortunately, 10 isn't going to cut it. Who we're looking 10 from? Guys that cost 3K, no more than 4K. This is 1.5, or I guess technically 1.5 more than the 3K guys, and 600 too much right now for this slate. And he had a good game, good player, just not viable, especially on Man United right now. Luke Shaw is the only real option from this entire team. He's still going to cross the ball a bunch of times. Sorry about that. So I don't know. I still have no issue with Luke Shaw in either format, 5,500, preferably cash. I don't see a clean sheet, so there's probably no ceiling. And De Gea's just too expensive, 5,500. They're conceding at a rate that's just like disturbing. So it's easy to say, yeah, young boys that. I don't know. Young boys aren't Valencia, plain and simple. And Valencia have some pretty interesting options. You can go with Nito as the value keeper this slate because, again, Man United aren't going to score a gazillion goals unless they fall on it, which is a luck kind of scenario, which isn't something we're even considering for cash anyways. So the cash script for Nito is Man United aren't scoring more than 2 goals. He's probably going to get enough saves to pay off. He only needs 4 saves. And he doesn't even have to win the game. And actually 5 saves and concede, you're flying. So against Man United, I think that's very possible. Wasn't the best game against Juventus. Obviously, Juventus is who they are with 10 men. But yeah, I really like that 3.9K. I think that's a really sharp play. My favorite, no. But is it there? It's definitely up there. See, Pacini's actually one of their corner takers. So I don't know. Gay is obviously very interesting. Yeah, he's probably playing. I don't mind it for GPP. This just isn't where you're looking for cash. They don't take he's not taking corners this year, and Gay doesn't take the corners. So I don't know. There's not a whole lot, especially against like Man United are just good enough to make it complicated, but just bad enough to not really like themselves enforce themselves in the game. But yeah, this is absolutely where you're going to want to look when we're looking for the major cash cheap options this slate. First one is Perejo. Not much to say here. And this was against Juventus, mind you. Obviously, this doesn't tell the whole tale. This does, and this does. That combined, I think, -7. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. It's up in that range. So, and he did that by still, so it'd be probably closer to 8, -8 total because of his card and penalty miss. I got no problem with him in cash. 4.7K is just way too cheap going up against Man United. Man United could very easily get a clean sheet. Who knows? They're at home. Yeah. They're also one of the most complicated teams in all of the Big Six superstar teams, Big Six leagues across Europe. So they're just in rough shape. So yeah, I think Cherishev's a GPP option, another star from the World Cup. He was the guy scoring all the goals for Russia, so he's capable. But this is definitely where I'm going to first for cash this slate. Daniel Wass for Valencia had 8 crosses against Juventus. I'll take that risk for 3.9K against Man United. Yeah, I got no problem with that. Him and Parajo, you're going to have to play one or the other. I prefer Was for the cheap option. And then if you pair that, obviously, with my main man, Shone, things actually come together really, really easily, incredibly so. I'll show you just basically. You can't go Shaw here. I don't like it. I prefer this and then that. Now look at this. Look at what you still have left here. Remember, Gareth Bale's not playing. Lewandowski is not a cash play. He just isn't. He doesn't take enough shots. He doesn't take enough corners or free kicks or anything like that. He's just not a cash play. Good enough player. Fecker, you could get away with it. Again, he doesn't have that floor that you're really looking for. So like Depay is the first spot you're really going to. And that means you're going to still have at least 7.5K left in your flex to really do whatever you want with. I'm just going to remind everyone here, I still didn't click the most important, crucial name of the entire slate. So, like, honestly, you don't even have to do Ismaili here. You can do Cruz and anyone, the flex, obviously, all the times or whatever, right? But, yeah, you can do Cruz. Like, you know what? You can probably do Kimmich. And Depay, if you start working around with some other stuff here, maybe dropping that for a few hundred. I just like that clean sheet opportunity because I think it's safe enough for cash where there's still a floor. But yeah, that's my DraftKings breakdown. I'm sorry that took so long. I know we haven't got to FanDuel yet. I do want to have another quick little spiel here about something. But yeah, thanks for sticking with that. There's all my dummy lineups. That's DraftKings. Let's jump over to FanDuel. So this weekend, for anyone who's been following me on Twitter, that kind of thing, I want to give a big thank you for sticking by me, especially people who have supported me over the last year, few years here working with DFS. I finally made my big hit on FanDuel, my big hit. I took a big chunk out already, but yeah, I won a fair amount of money this weekend on FanDuel. Again, for me, small bankroll player. And soccer isn't just a big bankroll kind of sport. So winning a couple grand in soccer was pretty special. I won a ton of tickets. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. I won a bunch of tickets on DraftKings too. I had an incredible weekend with, in general, with taking Harry Kane. So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone. It definitely means a lot, and it's pretty special, pretty cool, and you never really expect this kind of thing. So it's definitely pretty cool and a really cool experience. Crazy sweat when I faded all of the Chelsea Liverpool game, but yeah, I wanted to point that out. Obviously, some people are going to notice this and be like, that's not the $40 you talked about every episode. Yes, I usually keep $40 in my bankroll just to be able to play whatever I want. Now, I obviously have a much bigger bankroll. It's just that's what I keep on the site. So I'm not sure what I want to do with this yet. It was my birthday. I took some money out, treated my mom, gave my parents a little bit of money. So yeah, it's nice to actually win a little bit and hand out my 10% where it's deserved. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you for your support. So yeah, let's do FanDuel really quickly here because there are still some plays. Olsen again, just too cheap, 5K. And especially if I have a feeling Courtois may end up starting this game. That's just too cheap. And this is definitely the spot where I'll be going this slate. He may not even get enough shots. I don't know. FanDuel probably knows something I don't, but I just have a real strong suspicion. 4.5 is too cheap on this site for either format. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be looking a little bit more up the list at the Olsen and the Excuse me. Where did we go here? Why that? Oh, that's why. There we go. Yeah, the Olsen and the potential Courtois. But yeah, that's the other option. Now for defense, it's a little bit tougher, obviously, since the scoring is different. But Sergio Ramos won't be playing. David Alba isn't really an option. Again, that's boosted from last game. Talk about boosted. That's just not going to replicate against Bayern. Maybe the first place I would consider. Maybe. Again, maybe. I still would prefer going much further down. Alba doesn't really have a goal upside. He has a little bit of assist upside. Kimmich has a massive goal and massive assist upside. And same with Kolarov. I know the crosses aren't there on FanDuel, but I just got no problem with that. Grimaldo, too. The three of them right here at this range are absolute slammers for just real raw points, even with this different scoring. I expect literal like assists and goals from sorry, not Bukakis, not him. Kolarov, Kimmich, and Grimaldo. That's where a lot of my focus is falling. Hummels is obviously still there. 6K is a little bit heavier over here. But you know, like Nacho could end up getting the start. Ismaili's I know that the cross is right, but like look at Ismaili and Mario Fernandez, who you know is playing as a winger. So that's some GPP upside. Matthias de Ligt, if you haven't heard me talk about him yet, he's literally the next superstar. It just sucks he plays defense. He's basically the Ronaldo of defense. He's a really young kid out of Holland. You're going to be hearing a lot about him. I guarantee he's going to be on a Liverpool or a Bayern or a Manchester something within the next few years. Like he's legitimately the next world star. So I don't know. Why not, right? Get bled now. But yeah, not really interested in terms of anything else, especially Sule maybe if you want to chase a clean sheet. And Boateng doesn't start. But yeah, Limberski again. This could be interesting. Again, the Madrid starts. We just don't know. There was one more. Sorry, that's tomorrow. I'm thinking of tomorrow, so I got to stay focused on today. Pacini starts. He does do some work there. That's interesting to me because like he's playing defense and he could still get the clean sheet bonus. So I think that could end up being a really sharp play this slate if he ends up starting and playing 90 minutes as a center midfielder. Mainly in cash, GPP not so much, but you can still get away with it. 4.5K opens literally every door. So yeah, something to think about there. But yeah, other than that, no, nothing really defense wise. So yeah, let's move on to midfielders here. So you can understand Modric's price stop. Pogba, no. Robin's too expensive. It's probably where you want to start just because his chance creation is going to be so high. Modric has the same kind of chance creation, but not the same amount of chances, nor the same exclusive set pieces, that kind of thing. Cruz is going to have chance creation with more upside opportunity. So I'll be looking to that at 9K. There's Dagazev again. Ziyech, obviously, like we're talking about, really high priced. Hard not to just do that all the time. 8.5. He should be 10, if not 9. So yeah, I got no problem with 8.5K for James Rodriguez. I think Fekir's really interesting at 8K, especially since FanDuel doesn't really price the crossing and prices goals a little bit more valuable. And he is definitely more goal upside, but has consistency that really allows you to do a lot of great things from only 8K. Another guy that's probably should be closer to 10K. You can see why Was over here on Valencia is 8K, and back in DraftKings, Daniel Was was what, 3.6, 3.7? 3.9. So yeah, you get the idea why I'm so high on Daniel Was and DraftKings. And he's going to be getting his scoring is more well suited for DraftKings, which is even crazier. So yeah, 8K, jump on it. Parajo, again, another guy's going to be taking the set pieces. Chance creation is going to be there. Under a little bit too expensive, maybe more of a GPP. Excuse me. Again, Shone. So cheap at DraftKings. Over here, you see why I'm bullish. And Mantelos, again, another guy you could probably get away with in cash. 7.5, 7.5. Pizzi, too cheap, 7.5. He's going to have everything. Asensio, Vasquez. You're probably better off taking these two in a GPP setting together rather than trying to fit one of them into cash. They just don't have a cash script. Yes, you can get lucky. They're playing against CSKA, lots of upside, but it's just not a cash script that you should really be chasing. So that's really my take on those two. Bistro, he's supposed to take free kicks and stuff, but he just isn't playing. Another guy, Horsfree, he takes some corners and set pieces. I went with him last time. It really didn't pay off. I'm not going to be going back. I didn't really get burned. I'm just not going back. Servi, another guy you're going to have to consider. Guedes, he's the Portuguese international, played up front with Portugal with Ronaldo. He's really good. It was in the World Cup, excuse me. Yeah. It's tough down here because a lot of these names they're good names. It's just they're not like a Matic, Maicon. They're just not producing players, they're defensive aspects. So it's tough. But yeah, that's really the takes for midfield. I'm not seeing anything else. There's the Sigurdsson I'm almost drawn just to take that Gylfi, live and learn. Yeah, that's basically it for the midfields. Let's jump to forwards real quick. So yeah, way too expensive. Way too expensive. Way too expensive. He's not doing much else even with his goal. So yeah, no. There's just too much to say no about Lukaku. Bale isn't playing. We already talked about Benzema. So look, already at this point, we've basically cut all of the top 5 forward salaries as solid fades. So Dzeko again, it's like, well, that's pretty easy place to start. There's another one, even for cash. You can get away with this for cash. I don't think you can get away with Dzeko for cash, even though goals are worth a lot more, and I think he has a lot more goal upside. But yeah, it's just tough, right? And then the further you go down, there's still a few more options like Salvio, and I'm hoping Traore gets to start. That would be so much fun to get him in GPP on FanDuel for 8.5K. You could really do some crazy builds with that out of the midfield with Real Madrid. Yeah, there just isn't a ton of things. I know he paid off last slate. I'm pretty sure it was luck more than anything. Not an attacking player. Gumero is a legend. If he actually gets to play, it would be cool. Future star, probably not going to play though. Yeah, that's basically it. Jonas, I talked about a little bit. The team captain used to get all the free kicks and stuff, just not playing now. But yeah, that's basically it. Where was Chavlov? Chavlov, 8K, too expensive. Sorry. Salem Flask, too expensive. Yeah. It's funny because like Real Madrid have really no viable forward options. They're all in the midfield. So like I said, you can take Dzeko and then drop down to something really cheap and then stack the Madrid. Even take a Roma, a huge Roma stack. This is still really viable over here because of the lack of crossing scoring. So you won't have the same, but like Florenzi and Kolarov both have assist upside. I don't know. It's tough. So yeah, I hope that is a good breakdown for everyone. I'll take a quick check here around to make sure I'm not seeing any questions that I should be answering. But yeah, that's really my takes. I hope everyone likes them. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter, RadRobDiamond. Get over at us at rotopros.com. Get on our Slack. We're flames. We're having a blast. We're growing crazy. So crazy numbers, excuse me. So things are going on the up and up. It's a good time to get in. But that's really my takes for this slate. I hope everyone liked them. I'll jump back over here so you can see my face once more because, That's what it's about, right? The bathrobe and the face and the hair and the beard. But yeah, thank you everyone for sticking with me throughout this entire show. I really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow morning. The hope is for the the best DFS show, the 8 EST DFS show. I'm hoping to do it every morning at 8 EST, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate with if a certain night there's no real games. I'm probably not going to do one. For anyone that may be interested, you're probably not, but I work nights, so I'm up all night. So if anyone's messaging me during the day and you notice I'm not responding, that's generally why. So I'm generally sleeping. So yeah, I'm up in the morning here. First thing, I'm going to be trying to do these shows. I hope everyone had a blast. Thanks for tuning in. Rotopros.com. Check us out. Give us a like, subscribe, hit me up on Twitter. See you later. See you at the top. Good luck, everyone.